Who would have thought this could actually happen? Early in 2024, a quiet signal came out of Europe, and it caught Washington's attention. Switzerland, the country that already chose the F-35 as its next-generation fighter. Instead of celebrating, Swiss officials started raising concerns about spiraling operating costs and limits on sovereignty they say they never fully expected. And this isn't just Switzerland's problem. It cuts straight to the heart of the $19 billion deal Canada is about to sign. So here's the real question. If a country famous for extreme caution and neutrality is now discovering serious problems with the F-35, is Canada walking into a financial and political trap it can't escape? Because this isn't really about airplanes. It's about control, sovereignty, and long-term consequences. Switzerland isn't a typical buyer. Through 2 world wars, it stayed neutral. No NATO membership, no military alliances, no defense decisions driven by politics. When Switzerland buys weapons, it buys for real-world performance, predictable costs, and guaranteed independence. That's why its 2021 decision mattered. After years of evaluation, Switzerland chose the F-35 over the Gripen E and Rafale, based on hard numbers, capability, and projected lifetime costs. On paper, it made sense. But just 2 years later, the story changed. Reports from Switzerland's defense ministry in late 2023 and early 2024 revealed operating costs coming in far higher than expected. Not slightly higher, but beyond what officials felt they could comfortably control. That's when Swiss defense analysts started asking a question no country wants to ask. Are we losing control of our own defense budget? And that's the heart of the issue. Because the real problem isn't the purchase price, it's what comes after the deal is signed. And that's exactly what Canada now has to confront.
The real problem starts after the aircraft is delivered. Swiss defense experts discovered that the F-35's cost per flight hour is rising on a path they can't predict and can't control. Public Swiss defense budget reports show operating costs coming in 20 to 30% higher than what was presented during the bidding phase. Some of that comes from global inflation, but most of it comes from something far more troubling, a pricing system controlled almost entirely by the United States. When the Pentagon raises maintenance costs, software fees, or changes the parts supply chain, F-35 customer countries don't negotiate, they absorb it. That's the moment Switzerland realized something uncomfortable. They bought the aircraft, but they don't control its full life cycle. The billions spent upfront are only the beginning. The real costs over 30 or 40 years aren't decided in Bern. They're shaped in Washington. So if Switzerland, with its famously strong finances, is worried about losing budget control, the obvious question follows: what happens to Canada?
But cost is only half the story. The bigger issue is sovereignty. The F-35 isn't a traditional fighter jet. It's a digital system. Every mission, every sensor reading, every software update, all of it connects back to centralized systems managed by the United States. Defense analysts point out that flight data flows into Pentagon-controlled logistics and mission systems. And what does that mean in practice? It means when Switzerland wants to update combat software, improve electronic warfare capabilities, or perform certain levels of maintenance, it needs approval. No approval, no access. A Swiss defense official once put it bluntly in a closed hearing: "We're renting the technology, not owning it." That line spread quickly across Europe because it hit a nerve. When you buy the F-35, you don't fully own the aircraft. And that leads to the question Switzerland is now asking, and Canada has to answer. If US political priorities change, if access is restricted, if permissions are delayed or denied, what does a country do when its frontline fighters depend on someone else's green light? That's not a technical issue. That's a strategic one. And if the sovereignty issue is serious for Switzerland, for Canada, it becomes far more critical. Because Canada doesn't just need a modern fighter jet. Canada needs a system that can actually operate in the harshest environment on the planet, the Arctic. We have the world's longest coastline, over 240,000 kilometers, much of it in subarctic territory. Temperatures can drop to -40. Bases are separated by enormous distances. Logistics are thin. Weather is unpredictable. This is not an ideal environment for a fighter jet built around centralized, network-dependent warfare. The F-35 relies on climate-controlled hangars, complex diagnostic systems, and continuous logistical support. Its real-world operating record in extreme cold is still limited. Reports from Alaskan deployments have shown F-35 readiness dropping sharply in very low temperatures, partly due to sensor reliability and cooling system challenges. That matters because Canada doesn't defend itself in ideal conditions.
It defends itself in ice, isolation, and bad weather. Now compare that to the Gripen E. It was designed from the ground up for dispersed operations. It can take off from highways. It can be maintained by small teams with minimal equipment. And it operates in northern European climates that closely mirror Canada's subarctic regions. Sweden has proven this approach for decades while patrolling the Baltic and Scandinavian Arctic. So this isn't about which jet looks better on paper. It's about geographic fit. Canada needs an aircraft that can survive and fight where it actually operates.
And then there's the issue almost no one talks about, but may be the most dangerous of all: data dependency. The F-35's brain doesn't sit in Canada. Its diagnostics, mission data, and software updates rely on centralized cloud systems managed by the United States. Every major system check, software verification, or combat update requires the aircraft to essentially phone home. That creates a quiet but profound dependency. Not just technical, strategic. For a country responsible for defending vast, remote territory, especially the Arctic, that dependency isn't theoretical, it's real. And once again, it raises the same questions Switzerland is now asking. Are we truly in control, or are we just operating someone else's system?
This creates two major risks for Canada. The first is obvious. In a geopolitical crisis, if access to US-managed servers is disrupted by a cyber attack, a political decision, or even a technical failure, the combat readiness of Canada's entire F-35 fleet could drop fast. That's not hypothetical. That's how the system is built. The second risk is response time. If tensions rise in the Arctic, and most analysts agree that's likely within the next decade, Canada can't afford delays. It can't wait for approval cycles, software permissions, or external updates while situations unfold in real time. In air defense, seconds matter. And that's why cybersecurity experts keep making the same point. A sovereign nation shouldn't place its frontline defense inside a digital system it doesn't fully control. That's exactly what Switzerland is now warning about. So why does Washington care so much about which jet Canada chooses?
Because this isn't just a defense purchase, it's a political signal. Choosing the F-35 ties Canada tightly into the US defense architecture, NORAD, Arctic strategy, and Washington's long-term military vision. When Canada signs that contract, it's not just buying aircraft, it's locking in its defense future, technically and politically. And that's why the alternative matters. If Canada were to pivot toward the Gripen or another European system, it would set a dangerous precedent from Washington's perspective. A core NATO ally publicly choosing independence over integration. That could trigger questions elsewhere. Poland, Norway, the Netherlands, even Australia. Canada isn't just another buyer. International observers see Canada as the key domino in the global F-35 strategy.
If Canada walks away, the narrative of F-35 inevitability starts to crack, and Switzerland's experience is already weakening it. A neutral country, under no alliance pressure, is openly saying, costs are rising, control is limited, sovereignty is constrained. That changes the conversation. So how has Canada responded? Quietly, carefully, and very deliberately. Ottawa hasn't canceled the F-35 deal, but hesitation is showing. Infrastructure upgrades at Canadian air bases have been slowed. Specialized hangars and maintenance systems are under review instead of moving ahead at full speed. At the same time, Canada's Defense Department has expanded studies on Arctic operating conditions, including reassessments of alternative aircraft. That's unusual, because if the decision were truly locked in,
more studies wouldn't be necessary. And finally, behind the scenes, conversations with European manufacturers, especially Sweden's Saab, have increased noticeably over the past year. Canada hasn't changed course, but it hasn't fully committed either. And in defense planning, hesitation usually means one thing: the questions are no longer theoretical. Even without official announcements, defense watchers have noticed something interesting. Saab representatives keep showing up at Canadian defense conferences, quietly, consistently, and that tells us something. What Canada is learning from Switzerland isn't that the F-35 is a bad aircraft. It's something deeper. 3 hard lessons. First, ownership matters more than specs. Second, real-world readiness matters more than theoretical superiority. And third, technological independence can't be traded away for political pressure. Those are the priorities of a truly sovereign nation. Switzerland isn't attacking the F-35. They're doing something far more uncomfortable. They're telling the truth, a truth the Pentagon would rather not highlight, because the future of air power isn't just about stealth or speed. It comes down to a few critical questions. Can you control the costs? Can it operate in your actual environment? Can you secure the data? And most importantly, do you truly own the system? Switzerland has already started asking those questions. Now Canada has to. Canada is standing at a crossroads. One path keeps the F-35, the most complex, most expensive, and most dependent fighter jet ever deployed. The other leads towards a system designed around Canada's geography, not Washington's priorities. This decision goes far beyond Ottawa. If Canada, one of America's closest allies, chooses sovereignty over pressure, it sends shockwaves through NATO and the global defense market. Switzerland's warning isn't the end of the F-35. It's the beginning of a debate no country can avoid. When security and independence no longer fully align, what do you choose? Canada hasn't answered yet, but the clock is ticking. If you want more deep defense and geopolitical analysis that doesn't shy away from uncomfortable questions, like and subscribe. This analysis is based on publicly available information and does not represent official positions of any government or organization. The debate is real, and it's just getting started.